All right, so we're back at it again. I got I got some good feedback from some buddies of mine on the last video that said they really liked how what that was, what that was all about. So I figured, hell with it, we'll make another one. So between the white knuckle experience that was pulling my trailer over the Rockies and then through the canyons of western Colorado, which was, if you ever get the chance to do it, make that drive. That's the most beautiful scenery I've ever seen off of an interstate anywhere I've been in the United States. It is jaw-droppingly beautiful. But I had a lot of time to think, especially in western Kansas, because there is nothing there. And I think the two topics that I want to hit on today are networking and communicating with the hall you want to go to, right? So I was originally planning on leaving next week, and the reason I pushed that timeline up is that I had someone here that I knew. She's a local sister of 46, and she's kind of been my eyes and ears on the ground. And it's her first time being on the road, and so she had been asking me some questions. Well, she called me. She's working for a contractor that I'd worked for before in the Bay Area and Kansas City. And the thing she was telling me sounded exactly like what my experience was like with them in Kansas City, and that eventually culminated with them being shown the door at a massive job. And I watched 124's books go from basically being a walkthrough to being stacked. I think when I signed, I was at like 354, which was fine because I had just finished a refinery turnaround in Washington. I was planning on hanging out at the house for a little bit anyways. But that was different because that job was 45, I think it's 50 miles from my house. Not a big deal, right? I was willing to sit around and wait. Here, if something like that happened, that's a big problem because this is the only job in this local right now that is paying enough money for me to justify putting this thing on the back of my truck and making a almost 1,200 mile drive. It's expensive, right? And I have other things lined up. I have what I call a PACE plan, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency, right? However, I like things to go the way I want them. So after speaking with her, I knew that it's not a matter of if, but when this contractor was going to get told, see you later. And that these books were going to go from being a walkthrough, I think there are like 18 guys on book 2, to 300 dudes getting dumped on the books. And then I'm sitting here just burning through money, or I'm hitching this thing up and driving another 600 miles to Oregon. I didn't want to do any of that. She had also told me there were some rumors flying around about incentives getting pulled, which effectively cuts about $1,000, $1,200, something over that. I'm too tired to do the math. A lot of money off of your weekly paycheck, which completely defeats the purpose of coming out here. That's an easy fix because I got off the phone with her, called Mike over at dispatch, said, "Hey Mike, I'm hearing some rumors, hoping you can clear it up for me." Talked at him a bit. He couldn't confirm anything with what was going on with this contractor, but he was able to soundly put down, it's like, no, nothing has happened to the incentive structure. So after that, I had a conversation with my wife because ultimately she is the one that blesses off on this, because she's the one that's got to carry the heavy load. All I'm doing is getting up in the morning and going and doing what I do anywhere else I go to work. I just do it somewhere else other than home. And I said, hey, this is what I'm hearing. She was privy to me coming home working for this contractor at Panasonic and being like, this is a disaster. So she gets it. And she said, well, what do you think you should do? I said, I think that it would be better to move the timeline up, go catch calls because they're open, it's a sure thing. She said, well, your gut's never wrong. So I hitched the trailer up on Sunday, and I blew out late Sunday evening. And like I said, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm still fried. Like I was saying, it's not the end of the world if that happens, because, Murphy's Law of Combat, man. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to get somewhere, and it'll happen to everybody eventually. Like when I took the call at the refinery, I didn't have the trailer at that point, thank goodness, but I drove my truck from my house, which is outside, south of Topeka, Kansas, all the way up to Blaine, 191, take a call out of Blaine at BP. Took the call, took the drug test, and got told, come back in a week. Okay. So I was able to fly home. Came back, spent my waiting week at home. I was waiting for the background check and all that to clear. Well, a couple weeks later, there was a bunch of snow. They shut the plant down for a week. And tickets were like $900. And I couldn't fly home. And I wound up sitting in my empty house in Marysville with nothing but an air mattress in it, watching Netflix on my phone for a week. It was painful. That kind of thing kind of comes with the territory. There's just stuff that's outside of your control that is going to happen. And you got to kind of roll with the punches. But when you can mitigate those risks, you do so. And, for the guys that may be watching this that have families, that are thinking like, God, I don't know if I could do that. It's like, you can. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and there's no way to sugarcoat it. It does not get easier saying goodbye to your kids or your wife. It sucks. And they understand, and they get it. But ultimately, if you have a family and you're doing this, you have to get it into your head, as good as the money is. If my wife called me tomorrow and said, I can't do this, I would have one word for her, and I'd say, okay. And I would throw this thing back on the truck, and I'd go home, because no amount of money is worth your family. That's when you're having these conversations, and I would suggest having them before, unemployment's running out and you're getting COBRA notices and all that. A good time to have them is when you don't have that stress. Sit down when things are good and say, hey, how do you feel about this? Or what should our plan be if I catch a layoff? Because it's a long ways off before I could catch another call. Start having those conversations now. Talk to your kids about it. One thing that's worked really well for my family when I come out is that I sit down and I talk to my kids, and I bribe them. When I went out to the refinery, I was gone for 5 months, and I made the mistake of only coming back like once a month for a weekend, which isn't enough time. That was a mistake, and one that I won't make again. This time, I think they're going to come with me. I think they're going to start coming with me more often than not. But we basically, my wife and I made a whiteboard graph in the shape of a thermometer, like a fundraising thing, and then we had a list of days of the week, and each, both boys had their own color. One was red, one was blue, and each day that they had no meltdowns and they did all the chores they were supposed to do, and they were polite and they didn't talk back, they got to fill in a thing on the, their day of the week, little bar, right, to keep track of their behavior. And on the thermometer, each dash represented a week, right? And there were little milestones there. So if they were good for 3 weeks, they get a little toy. They were good for 6 weeks, they got something a little bit bigger. so on and so forth. Then when I came home, I told them, if you guys are good and you're stellar, you help your mom out, and your behavior's good, you're good for your grandmother and your aunt, you can pick out whatever you want. And I told them, whatever you want. Like if these kids had asked me for, one of those cool go-karts wherever they sell Tractor Supply, I would have gotten it for them. And my kids being my kids, my youngest asked me for a Power Wheel side-by-side that lasted a week before he cracked it in half. And my older son wanted one of those cool Lego icons. I think he got the Castle of Barad-dûr one. We built it together. It's pretty cool. But moving forward, like I said, they're gonna start coming with me, which is a blessing, because it's difficult being out here and separated from them, because you miss a lot. So, I like I said, I really hope that you guys seeing my experiences out here and being able to kind of see someone that's doing it, kind of helps you guys, especially those of you that might be feeling kind of hopeless with the work picture out there. Is like, I'm here to tell you, there are options. There are good jobs. They pay more than you would. You work more than a 40, but you're going to make more than you would on a 40 in Seattle, right? And as always, I'm pretty easy to track down. I'm more than willing to help you guys out if you need it. Just reach out to some of the folks that post these. They have my number, they have my email, and I'll do whatever I can to help you guys out, because if we don't have each other, then what's the point of a union, right? So stay safe out there. Maybe I'll see some of you guys around.